Hey, hey, thanks for joining in. I see so many of the usual suspects, right? Like Deep. I think Deep was there in the last session as well. I wasn't able to join, but I remember Deep's there. Prince is always there in every session. Um, hey. Let's just wait for another minute or two and then let's start, right? Like just in case someone else wants to join. Hey, you can always turn on your camera, say hi. Yeah. Hey, Prince. Hey, Deep. Damn, you've grown like a complete mustache. I haven't seen that in a while. um, Great. I think let's just start in a minute, right? I think Devansh is having some problem joining. I'll connect with him in the background. But hey, Karthik, I know you've been specially waiting for this session for a while.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. It's been there for quite some time. Yeah, it's been pending for a while.
Yeah, I just couldn't find someone like Martin. So
Good
yeah.
to have someone. Hey, Mark, looking forward to it.
Yeah. No pressure, Martin.
Yeah, no pressure. Just been waiting for months for this, and you know.
Yeah, I think great. Let's start, and then when people join, they can join in, right?
Yeah.
I guess I've already given a basic introduction. Like, thank you for taking this session with us, Martin. So this is like a community. Just introducing Nexus once more. This is just a community of like marketers who like just getting better at marketing. That's it. There's marketers who are just starting out. There's marketers who've been doing it for years here, right? That's the only one common factor, is that everyone here is always looking forward to doing this, right? Now, looking forward to getting better. Now, Martin and I met on LinkedIn, and I think we met in a community of agency owners, and then we just sort of spoke. And I could see that he has like a complete no bullshit attitude to doing this, right? That he doesn't, like, even if you look at the slides, right, there is no fluff whatsoever. So I think we can expect, like, right after the meeting, after this session, if you want to go ahead and implement it yourself, you should be able to. And he's also prepared a lot of templates for you. So yeah, I'll just hand it over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, and really excited to chat with everyone today. And yeah, we're going to do no frills, like get down to business here, all about cold emailing. So I know this might be a little bit different of a session than maybe normal ones, or maybe a newer topic. And along the way, please feel free to jump in, like interrupt me, ask questions after any slide. In the middle of a slide, something isn't clear, you'd like more information on anything, highly encouraged. So over the next handful of minutes here, we'll go over a high level overview of how to send great outbound cold email. So, today we'll talk a little bit about the differences between email marketing in the traditional sense, maybe that a lot of you are familiar with, versus sending like a sales outbound cold email, and give like the step-by-steps on how to do that. So a little bit of background: I run a cold email lead generation agency, and before this worked at Envision, Zendesk, and have worked with a bunch of other startups, from 2 people to 200 people in their business development teams, outbound, trying to book new conversations for these software organizations. And because of that, I've had eyes on a bunch of different cold email campaigns, across a lot of different verticals, industries, personas, use cases. And it's been a lot of fun kind of, learning along the way and getting to see all of this stuff. And like I mentioned before, at a high level, no fluff in any of this. We're going to dig right into the details of setting the foundations for cold emailing. So I'm assuming that, we're starting from square one today. How do we go about setting up our cold email technical environment? Because a lot of success with cold emailing in terms of actually getting your emails opened, read, landing in people's inboxes and not spam. There's some setup work up front that needs to happen. Otherwise, you can write the best cold email in the world and it's not going to be read or delivered to them. We'll be going over, this is probably something that most of you are familiar with, ideal customer profiles. Who are we designing this cold email template for? Then we'll run through prospecting workflows, how to write great copy for our personas that we're trying to target. And we'll do a high level overview of some of the email sending tools you can use, how to make sure your emails aren't bouncing. And then I attach some other good comprehensive resources that you all can access afterwards. And time for questions at the end, but again, interrupt me at any time. And so let's just jump right into this. So the foundations for cold emailing are a bit counterintuitive. So most people would think that when you're sending cold email, you can just use your current email account and attach it to some sort of sending tool and just start blasting away. That's a surefire way to have your personal primary email that is important is going to be delivering to potentially get blocked as spam and have all of your emails to start delivering to people's spam folders. So whenever you're even thinking about setting up a cold email campaign, have to use a different domain and also set up a different email account for that domain. And just like if you're a SaaS company, as an example, get companyname.com, use company name. Working with Google domains and G Suite is recommended as the setup. It's just a bit easier to configure. If you're not going to be configuring this yourself, it's very easy to find a freelancer to go and help you set this up. It might just be the path of least resistance if you don't want to spend a week trying to figure out the technical details on how to configure everything. And we'll get to this in a second. Or I guess we can just go through this now. So there are a handful of records on the back end of like your email domain foundations and your email account foundations called DKIM, DMARC, SPF, Reverse DNS, a couple others. I wouldn't recommend really worrying about this unless you want to get super technical. It is pretty straightforward to set up, but if you just want to say, hey, I want an expert to go set this up, use someone on a freelancing site to just set this up for you. It'll take them, an hour, a couple hours to do, and you just won't have to worry about it, and it'll drastically improve your open rates and your corresponding response rates. If you don't set any of this up, you might get between like 5 to 10 or 15% opens. If this is set up properly and you warm your email up properly, you'll get 30, 40, 50% plus opens, depending on who you're sending to, the cleanliness of your lists, all that fun stuff. The other important thing we didn't quite touch on here is warming up your new domain and email address. You cannot create a new email domain and just attach an email address to it and start blasting out hundreds of emails every day. Google's a smart cookie, right? They look for spammers this way, right? If they see that you create a new domain, you whip up a new email address and you start blasting out a ton of cold emails, all your emails are going to go to spam immediately. So there are tools that will specifically help you warm up your email domain and your email address. 1 month is the recommended time frame to do this at a minimum. If you can do it for longer, great. There's some of my clients, they want to get started right away. So we start at like the 2.5, 3 weeks mark of letting things warm up. That's a little bit quick, and I kind of expedite the timeline there. But the longer you can give your domain and email address to warm up, the better. Warmbox is a good
I think
tool to do that.
just to ask one question here. So warming up
Sure.
basically means that what these tools will do is they'll probably emulate what a real user would be doing
Exactly.
on an inbox. Got it. Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
So they'll mimic, they'll send emails on your behalf, they'll reply to emails on your behalf. It all happens. They'll open, filter emails out. You just have to let it run, and it'll ramp up on the number of days that it will be warming up. So it'll send 1 email the first day, 3 the next day, 6 the third day, until you get up to like 100 or 200-ish emails a day. 200 a day going. This is just for all your references here.
And how much does something like Warmbox cost for someone who's
these tools will range anywhere from free. So a free tool that you can use for this is called Gmass. There's no bells and whistles here, like very bare bones. It's literally one tiny little dashboard, but it's free. Warmbox will run, depending on the number of domains that you're going to set up on it, or email accounts, 20, 30, 40 bucks a month per setup. And so if you're trying to go the cost-effective route, and I've done this too and it works fine, you can just use Gmass. I just search Gmass warm-up tool. And this is like the easy way to get going. And it works almost as well as Warmbox, and it's free. So, all right, cool, great. So once you have everything set up here, and please do more Googling, just throw in any of the terms that I have in these slides into Google if you need more clarification. I'm sure you guys are all expert, strategic Googlers. So whatever you need to do there is great. All right, ICPs, ideal customer profiles. We've all probably heard some sort of variation of this. Who are we trying to design our messaging to, our landing page to, our templates to, right? No different with cold emailing. This is going to be the start of your cold email campaign journey here. So when you're making a customer profile, I attach a document that I send to all my clients here. Not that one. Here it is. So you can go and make a copy of this and have access to all of this and have this be the basis of how you'll be creating your customer profiles. And this will help you write really good cold emails and come up with good steps. Maybe don't need to put all these here. This could be overkill for some of them, but the more the merrier with some of this stuff. So questions in here like, how are they interfaced? So like their titles, list their current pain points and how you can provide a solution to what they're dealing with. Some of the company profile types when you're targeting your prospecting campaigns. So this is kind of like your home base for all of your information on who this person is, where they're working, how they're doing their day-to-day jobs, like what are they struggling with. So dig into this into more detail after the call, for sure. And it's easy when you're getting going to say, oh, I'm just going to email marketing managers, right? Marketing managers is a good start to a customer profile, not very specific. Marketing managers of what types of companies? Of like small software companies between 10 and 100 employees located in the United States or Canada. That's a much more granular audience, and you can write much crispier messaging to the latter audience versus just saying, oh, I'm going to write this to marketing managers. A marketing manager of a 10,000 person company in manufacturing, right, who's located in Europe somewhere is going to care about something very different than a marketer overseeing 2 other teammates and have different responsibilities than right. It's just very important to spend some good time on that. And the last point here is, I think we've kind of covered all this, right? The more specific, the better. Let's move right along here. So great email copy is different from marketing campaign copy. So marketing campaign copy, maybe we're familiar with, a free trial sign up, trying to educate people in a newsletter, more long form, a lot more images. Cold email copy is really short, concise, very relevant to the person you're reaching out to, and has different types of calls to action. And so I attached 2 campaigns from some of my clients here that you can see, and I also attached a completed customer profile document. Let me know if none of these or if any of these aren't accessible. but I also gave some good templates and ideas for how to structure some of your emails. These don't need to be in exact order. I'm just, putting down ideas here. So mix and match these. But good cold email campaigns, and I'll cover this later, should be anywhere from 5 or 6 all the way up to like 10 or 11 steps, depending on how long you're spacing out the email messaging. If you want to send an 11-step email cadence, probably want to space that out over at least a few months, like 3-4 months. If you're going to do 5 or 6 steps and you want to get it to a yes or no more quickly, maybe a bit more, a bit shorter of a campaign. So on here, just as a sneak preview, just giving you like some templates that you can plug into some messaging. So as a good first example, this is really important to start the sequence off with a bang, and you want to be responding to each message. You don't want to be starting a new thread. I'll just write this down. So you want to reply to each message in the thread. New one. The first email needs to be really punchy, strong. So this is just one way to structure it. There's a couple other good starting emails. So like, I saw that you're dealing with this. I saw on your website that your Google Pixel isn't optimized. I'd imagine that this is leading to some lost sales, misattribution, and your some of your numbers are thrown off. I don't know exactly what we're looking at. One of our other software marketing companies was dealing, or you give a customer example, was dealing with this too. We helped them fix their misattribution and helped increase their cart value by 30% in 60 days. Would this be interesting to have a conversation around? Right, like as a call to action. That's it, like 3 sentences. Saw this. This is the issue that we see with other people in the situation. We know how to help in the situation. Here's a testimonial, a third-party way that we helped, and soft call to action. Are you thinking about this? Would this be a total waste of time to dig into a bit more, like using some of the marketing psychology too, of like using good copy, but in a different way to get people to think about their problem and see, at least like you're not trying to sell them on anything in a cold email. That's really important here. You're selling a meeting. You're not selling your product or your service in the email. You're selling a 30-minute conversation and getting them on the phone with you. So that's really important to understand, because a lot of times when I walk into a new client, I see these blocks and paragraphs of writing, and I'm sure you guys have all gotten cold emails like that aren't catered towards you. They're not relevant. You get hit with the wall of text and you're like, delete, mark as spam. Want to avoid that. Want to make sure that each line leads into the other and it keeps people reading, interested, easy to skim. Pretend like, or send yourself a test email on your phone. See if like you enjoy reading it on your cell phone, right? And it's really easy to just look at, like, it's not intimidating, not a huge block of text. Very, very important to make sure that people are actually like reading your whole email. Check out the rest of the sheet here. We'll dig into some other topics, but a whole bunch of ideas here, and we can come back to this at the end of our chat as well.
So I think Prince has a question.
Sure.
Prince, why don't you
Go for it.
ask her?
Yeah, what's up?
Hi, Martin. Actually, I was sending a bunch of mails lately, and I was having this doubt ki everyone says ki you should personalize your mail, but what we often find on websites is generic mails like info@xyz.com, and
Yeah.
and these are just often are for product description or customer support. The purpose of those mails are that. So
Yeah.
It kind of feels wrong to send to these mails. So do you think it's better to dig deep for the personal mails of the people and
Yeah,
send?
Absolutely. And there's a bunch of different tools that we'll review. That's a great question. So when you're sending an email to a contact at info at, probably a much lower chance of that being responded to, because it's much harder, like you just mentioned, right? You hit the nail on the head. It's much harder for you to personalize that to someone because you have no idea who's going to open that email,
Exactly.
right? So you're exactly right. And there's a bunch of different tools that we'll go over and that I've linked to, where you can either pull someone's email address right off of their LinkedIn profile and you can just kind of scrape it. Or there's other tools like in Apollo where you can actually search for a bunch of these companies at once and these people in these companies. And I'll show you guys an example of this. I'll pull up just like an internal, just kind of like workflow of what's possible here. So let's just do this right now. Let's jump to this. That's a great question. It's top of mind. We'll touch on this in a little bit, but I'll just show you like a behind the scenes look at some of this stuff. So let's do this and let's do this. Oh, here's another good tool while this is being recorded and we're just, brain dumping all our good stuff. If you want to check on your domain health, this is a really good tool called MX Toolbox. And what you can do is you can see if your domain and your inbox is set up properly. So you can plug in your domain and make sure that there aren't any red glaring errors. And this is good to do before you start sending out a lot of your cold email. And after whoever is helping you set this up, you need to make sure there's no big red X's on anything. So I'll just put in my domain as an example, check domain health. You'll get a couple warnings here on my domain that aren't important for cold emailing, but there should not be any errors on any of these once this is fully run. Just to say what passed, what warnings are there. Everything's fine here, right? It's throwing the same thing so for 4 or 5 times. This is okay. But as long as your configuration looks something like this, you're good to go. That was just a side tangent here. So on LinkedIn, when you're looking at finding people's emails, I have a couple little tools up here. I don't know if you guys can see these on my screen. I have a little frog man there. And I'm sorry, my computer is just a little slow with the screen sharing right now. So let's say we're trying to look at my email. What this will do, and it might not find it right away, this is called an email finder extension. So it's called Lead Leaper, and you need to be careful which ones you're installing. Some of them LinkedIn doesn't like, and it might block your account. But Lead Leaper is one that I've used before. I have a pretty niche thing, so that might not work, but it'll find about 70–80% of your emails that you need to find based off of somebody's LinkedIn profile, which is really, really helpful. Let's try this. This is my old manager. So let's see if this worked. We'll give that a second. We'll go like this. And so all you do is you click this, and there's other alternative tools that you can do this in bulk, which we'll get to next. But this will essentially scan, like run a search to see if it can find any. I see we have some chat questions here too. Sorry, I'll open these. Great, so we're answering all these. Okay, it might have just kicked me out. We'll worry about that later, but just showing you guys an example of what's possible from a LinkedIn profile. Here's what this looks like on a tool like Apollo. So Apollo is a tool where you can filter out a bunch of different criteria here. So in this past recent search, I was looking for founders located in North America, United States, for companies between 1 and 20 employees who were in the computer software. It looks like I was doing some prospecting with this search. So you can save this type of persona. You can add a bunch of other different types of filters. And this way, what you can do is you can find a bunch of different people who are in your target audience. It tells you their title, where the company is located, and you can pull their email and phone right from these programs. And you just need to purchase some credits to do that in each one of these. And some of them will just have credit limits. But this is a great way for you to find people to contact at scale who you're trying to reach out to. Apollo is like $49 a month. Some of them you need to send like right within Apollo. You can actually do your email marketing or your outbound emails right in here as well. which is really nice, and the sequences. Other tools, this will be separate, like the prospecting will be separate from your actual email sending. And we're going to cover that in a second here. So let's
one
get back on.
question that question that Deep asked, right, was some of these tools, as you also mentioned, right, are not LinkedIn might ban you for them. So how do you know which tools will get you banned, which tools may not get you banned?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. So if one in doubt, do some strategic Googling, be like LinkedIn email extraction tools safe, something like that. I know it's not very fancy. LinkedIn doesn't have like a running list of the safe and not safe tools, but you might not get banned right away, but they might say, hey, like take this extension off your account. This one's called Lead Leaper. I haven't had any problems with it. It's generally a pretty safe one if you want to pull right off of LinkedIn. But LinkedIn's kind of been cracking down on some of these. So just before you start installing any tool off of the Chrome store, like do some research on it and see if it's fine, because there's hundreds of these different tools. Okay, cool. So going back to email personalization and what we were talking about here, personalizing each email. So like the subject lines, making sure you're writing the email to each person. That will get you higher open rates, higher reply rates. Takes a lot longer to send out than if you just kind of want to drip emails out to 100 people in your target audience. You know, if you're saying we're seeing from other marketing leads at ad agencies that they're dealing with this and this problem, you can send that message to, you know, hundreds of different people, and it's still pretty targeted, even though you didn't go and like look at what school they went to on LinkedIn and all that stuff. And I think there's sometimes a misconception with personalizing that's actually helpful. Like people don't really care if you notice on LinkedIn what school they went to and like what volunteer opportunities they're doing. People care if you can solve a problem for them and you know how to do it and you've solved it before, right? Like that's what will get people to book a meeting with you. So don't worry about like spending 20 minutes you know, researching where this person lives and like what their dog's name is and putting that in the email, right? Like it doesn't really matter. Figure out what problems they're dealing with that ties back to like a core business issue that you know that they're responsible for solving or probably responsible for solving. Write about that. That's really all that cold email drills down to. So
another question I had regarding the copy and list building, right?
Yeah.
So usually when we were trying to do this, right, the one thing we always kept defaulting to is when we are building the list should be built based on an intent, some sort of an intent signal, right? Like for example, if they're hiring, then we know that okay, they want to expand their SEO somehow, so we can send them an email, right? So and similarly, like whenever even the copies that you've showed, right, it starts with, hey, I noticed that something.
Yep.
Right. So when you're using something like Apollo, there isn't a lot of filters that you can say that, hey, I noticed, like which filters can you say that, hey, I noticed that dash?
Sure. Yeah, great question. So different tools, that's excellent because it's tough and it will take you a really long time if you can't find some sort of action to write about. And sometimes, you know, you can just make something up. Like, you know, I saw that your team hired this and this person a few months ago, something like that. What you can do on something like Apollo is see which companies are using Google Analytics, right? And I want to only target companies in my persona that are also using Google Analytics, right? And so now I'm going to be showing all the marketing managers or all the CEOs, you know, who are using Google Analytics. In terms of hiring, that one, you know, is a bit trickier in terms of who just hired a bunch of people recently, but here's just some other examples of things that you can pull from.
I have an idea in terms of
Yeah.
hiring. LinkedIn Insights is a very good option.
Yeah.
You can open a company's page and go to LinkedIn Insights, and you can find their growth in 1 year or 2 years.
Great. So yeah, going through that, yeah, that's a really good call. So going company by company, if you have a list, or you know, if you want to have someone else help you with this, say, yeah, I think that's an excellent idea as well. Like saw that you just added a new growth marketer, you just added 3 people to your marketing team, something like that. Really good call out. Thank you. So going back here, personalization of scale is kind of what we just talked about, right? How do we make this messaging relevant to the right person, talking about the issues that are important to them? All right, so good subject lines. Here's a couple things. We have a few more slides left here, and then I know we're going to go a couple minutes over, but we'll wrap this up quickly. Again, strategic Googling. There's hundreds of good subject lines. Find one that resonates with you, something that you find interesting. Some of my favorites, and again, it's a personal thing, finding 3 things that are completely unrelated that piques people's interests, that like the subject line's responsibility is to get your email open as long as it's landing in people's inboxes, right? Configure your inbox properly. The second gate here is to write a good subject line that gets a click. And so people then open and read your email. Those are like the 3 different tiers of cold emailing. So like 3 totally unrelated things. And maybe I relate to these 3 things. Like, hey, I had a question about this. Are you, I saw on Tuesday that you did that. And, I don't know, I just threw in a random word here, right? But like tied in. Just putting growth is an interesting one. People are like, what does this mean? Name a company, then write something here. Like maybe if you're targeting a Facebook pixel, going back to that example, and like you were trying to optimize their ads or like run different ads to them, you can have like pixel issues or like FB pixel issues, right? Or like incorrect FB pixel setup, ? Something like that, something abbreviated that sounds human, that's interesting. That people are like, oh, is this set up like not set up properly? Like, what am I not doing? What do I not know? And you're going to be able to explain to them why your subject is the way it is in your email copy. Okay, so prospecting workflows. So we've kind of gone over all of this, which is great. So you take your ICP, you plug it into Apollo. This is the tool that I showed you guys. There's other tools that will just do prospecting, like Get Prospect, 쏘낳ᴜ. I linked to them here. These will only have the data in the prospecting portion. From there, you'll have to export your lists into a sending tool that we'll cover in the next slide. Before we get to that, if you're not exporting 100% verified emails, it is very, very important that you use an email verification tool before you go and send to all of those email addresses. So tools like NeverBounce and ZeroBounce will let you validate whether the emails you just scraped are actually valid emails. A really easy way to totally screw up your sender reputation on the domain and email inbox level is to start blasting emails out to emails that don't exist, are bouncing, any of those things, right? We want to avoid those at all costs. And so you need to make sure that you have a clean list of emails you're sending to. I mean, it's same on the email marketing front, right? Like if you have a list that you haven't cleaned in a while and you're going to blast out 10,000 emails to them and 5-6% of them bounce, like you're going to get less opens in your ensuing campaigns because, your email provider is like, oh, this person's just, not cleaning their list properly. Same exact thing, arguably more important than cold emailing. So email sending tools, you can do everything in Apollo, prospecting and sending. I use Mailchimp with a lot of clients for particularly sending, Woodpecker. There's like a dozen other tools like this. So in an email campaign, you'll see when you click through into some of these campaigns that we've set up. And I can just show you, this is kind of like a, let's see if I have anything in here. I have a couple like burner Apollo accounts. I'm curious if I have a sequence in here. There are certain ways to set up your variables. So you can actually pull the prospect's first name, company name, anything along those lines. We'll come back to this in a little bit. And if you just look up like how to insert variables, that's going to be really important to personalizing your email. So you'll be able to pull in the prospect's company name from your import, their first name. You can pull in any other custom fields. The more of those that you can pull in, the better. So you can say like, hey, Marty, I saw that, you spent some time at Owl Vision Labs. You're not just saying, hey there, I saw that you're doing this. That's a lot less personalized, the latter than the former. So final notes here. start slowly. When you're sending cold email, you have to stretch, you know, you don't just want to jump right into it. That's how you're going to screw up, you know, your domain, your inbox. Send yourself a test email, make sure all the variables are form filling properly, or just preview what the email is going to send before you start sending this out to a bunch of people. And then from each account, you know, try to not send more than a couple hundred emails per day per email account. You can send up to 2,000 a day from G Suite. Stay under that limit, because no normal person like who's sending emails manually is sending 2,000 emails a day. So try to send, you know, a small percentage of that. If you want to really overwhelm yourself with sales tools and resources, I give you a link to exactly do that, because I know sometimes that's a lot of fun to do. So there's about like 40 different categories of sales, like cold emailing tools here. Don't worry about if if most of the categories don't make sense. I'm just giving you guys options, letting you explore the terrain of cold emailing. Only the stuff I mentioned here is what is crucial for getting your campaigns going. There's a lot of ways to get fancy with things, like porting in custom screenshots of people's website URLs, saying, hey, I just checked out your website. And then, you know, bulk taking screenshots of people's websites and plugging that in, like to make it super hyper personalized. Like there's some cool growth hacking things that I've used that are super successful, that like are fun and interesting and different and will help your email stand out like that. So play around with things like that. And if you're curious about the tool I just mentioned, it's called Hyperize. So play around, and there's a few other tools like this as well that are just like really cool, like probably also have a lot of marketing implications too, like personalizing landing pages. Then if you want another like full overview of cold emailing, I linked 2 other like definitive guides to cold emailing. Go through this, brush up on what we talked about today, watch the recording, read through these things. And yeah, that's all I got. So I'm happy to answer any other questions. No, we went a few minutes over. Thank you guys for staying on a little bit longer. And what questions do you guys all have?
I think Deep has added a few questions in the chat.
Yeah.
Would be great
Sure.
if you.
All right. Yeah, opening this up. So let's start. What haven't we gone over? So Contact Out is a good email extraction tool. Great. Yep, there's a lot of good email extraction tools like that. Funding, that's excellent. So when you're using funding as a filter, I wouldn't recommend having funding being the reason why you're reaching out, because there's going to be 10,000 people, other vendors who also saw they just got funding. It's okay to use that as like a trigger to say, hey, I saw that you're growing the team, or hey, it looks like that XYZ is about to start rapidly expanding the team. That sounds a little bit more cordial than, hey, I saw you just raise a ton of money, like come spend some of that with me, right? So definitely use funding as a filter. Just maybe don't call out like, I saw you just raise funding, but very, very good one with intent. So Gmass, you can actually send cold emails through Gmass. Lemlist is also good. I've used it for a couple clients. It's very similar to Woodpecker, Mailshake, anything like that. Sweet spot for number of follow-ups. This is going to depend on the campaign. So it could be anywhere from 5 to 10 plus. If you want to drip out a campaign, like if you want to stack email, kind of like little buckets of emails. So like 2 or 3 emails in the first week or 2, you want to send 2 or 3 emails in 3 or 4 weeks. And then maybe you send an email every 2 or 3 weeks after that, just like stay top of mind. You send them an interesting article, something like that. You can get super creative, and there's no right or wrong way to do this in terms of like the number of follow-ups. If you're trying to reach a lot more people, if you're sending more follow-ups, that's going to eat up the amount of emails that you're sending per day per email account. So if you want to reach, 2,000 people in the next 3 months, I wouldn't recommend putting 10 follow-ups, because your follow-ups are going to eat into the number of net new people that your campaign is going to be reaching out to. And it's also important, like you can set up multiple domains, multiple email addresses. I set up at least 2 to 3 when I start working with a new client, right? So this way, if one gets blocked or one, gets blacklisted, you can work around that, and you don't have to wait another month and a half to get everything revamped and going again. You have some backups, and you have other firepower to work with in the meantime. So shouldn't include images. You can include images like that hyperized thing. Just use it tastefully. Don't put 5 images in a thing. Make sure your footer is clean. Don't put a bunch of images and links and contact. And like, don't put a ton of links and images and footer stuff. That can mess up your deliverability. If you need to, put like 1 link per email, maybe link to a time booking, something or other in your footer along with your website. So like that's 2 links. That should really be the max that you have. You don't need a bunch of these fancy images. It also looks much less marketing-y and more salesy if you, or not salesy, but like more like a person sent it. If you don't have a ton of images, like this should be plain HTML. That's something I didn't mention, like no formatting whatsoever in any of these. This should never be written in anything like a MailChimp, since that's built for like transactional email marketing. Please, please, please don't use a MailChimp. Don't use SendGrid. Don't use any of those tools. There are specific cold emailing tools, and there are specific email marketing tools. So you need to use cold emailing tools for cold emailing. Tool for email verification. We covered this a little bit, and there's no right or wrong here in slide 8 here, just for reference. So never bounce and zero bounce. There's also a million other ones that you can use. These are 2 that I've just used. They're easy, they're simple. You upload your CSV lists of your contact exports. And so this is like the middle step before or between you export all your contacts, you throw it into Never Bounce Validator. If you're not just extracting validated emails, then you go into your Mailshake, your LEM lists, your whatever else you want to be using. And then you can be rest assured that all of your emails are gonna be valid and be sent and not bounce. And then daily email limit to be sent from 1 account. This can also range. Earlier on, I start email accounts between 20, 30, 40 emails a day. Keep in mind, you're going to have the warm-up tool running perpetually. There's never a time that you're going to stop the email warm-up in the background. Your domain and your email account should always be warming up, just to make sure that Google is always seeing your domain and your email as a reputable sender, and you're getting consistent replies to your messages, right? Like if you just stopped your warm up after you started sending cold emails, your reply rate would go way down, your unsubscribe rate, your bounce rate would go up immediately. And that would be fishy for Google. And they'd be like, what's going on here? You had such a good reputation, and then all of a sudden, like it all went to crap. Like what happened, right? So you want to prevent that from happening. So for your actual emails, 20, 30, 40, 50 a day per email address, you can ramp that up, up to a couple hundred a day after, 3, 4, 5 months. Just keep an eye on it. If you see reply rates going down, if you see any issues with your data, like be careful, right? Because it's a lot easier to maintain a good reputation than it is to claw your way back from a burned domain, a burned inbox, something like that. Okay, thoughts on using cold email templates and making your own templates. So we have a really good overview here. I linked to this in one of the slides above, cold email copyright and instruction. Steal these, pull from some of these. We can dig into some of the other steps here if people are interested, just for like a minute, but adding a little bump email is good. Here's a good other follow-up email. This is very similar to the first step. So, we've heard from other marketing directors that they might be struggling with this, and each email for follow-up should try to be hitting on a different problem, right? I think a lot of people get caught up on, hey, didn't know if you saw this message, like bumping this up to the top of your inbox. It doesn't provide value to anyone. That's annoying, and people are going to just delete those. So if you just keep kind of like pulling at strings and trying to find different problems that people are having, you don't need to acknowledge that they didn't respond to your last email. Don't do that. Say, hey, we're also hearing from this persona that like they're struggling with this. Are you looking at that? Like, here's what we're seeing in the industry right now with Facebook Pixel and like how the new Facebook regulations has changed the landscape. We're seeing some clients needing to adapt to this, and it's easy to be, left in the dark or like really see your cost per click go up if this isn't implemented properly. Like, would taking a second look at this be useful, right? Like having that be a call to action. You're not saying, hey, book time with me right now, here's my calendar. You're saying, would evaluating this from a different perspective be worthwhile, right? Like, you're putting this in the customer's perspective, thinking about this in their world, their problems. Cold emailing isn't about you. It's about your customer. It's about solving their problems. So making your messaging customer centric, no eyes, and maybe not no eyes. I don't want to say absolutes. Very few eyes, a lot of yous, right? You might be dealing with this. You know, we're seeing this, this, and this. How are you thinking about this today? Not, you know, I would love to help you do this. I want to help you do that. I think that we can do this. Try to cut out the eyes, replace them with yous. Let's see here. So other variations, lots of fun stuff in here. Like a fun one is like, imagine if you could cut your cost per click down from $3 to $1.50 in 2 weeks after we implemented some little known techniques for fixing some pixel misattribution errors. How would that save company names, marketing budget, and help you, you know, do this, this, and this, right? Like that second sentence is a 2-sentence thing. You're helping people picture like a better future state. You know, lots of fun stuff on here. So getting people to think about, like, challenging them, like how much ad spend are you wasting because your pixel's not attributing your purchases properly right now. I saw on your website it's still not, you know, maybe not still. I saw on your website it's not set up properly. Would you like to see like what the differences would be if your pixel was configured and we could, you know, properly see who is purchasing what and like, right, like track better customer data. All good fun stuff here. Okay, yeah, thank you. Yep, it's difficult if you're coming into cold email here, and you know, I work with a lot of, for better or for worse, like it's not an issue, but like marketing is a very different framework, mindset, and thought perspective on like writing emails than cold emailing. And there's just some little minor tweaks here, and they go a really long way once they're kind of implemented properly. Any other questions here? No? Yeah, we're 15 minutes over. Thank you, guys.
That's fine. I think this was really, really helpful. We'll be sharing, I think, a recording of this, and also all the resources. We'll figure out how to share the resources as well with the recording. Sure. Yeah, and yeah, thank you so much for taking the session. I haven't had a lot of success with cold emails myself, so I'll definitely be using. Yeah. Yeah. I guess
hey, Ishan, and hey, Martin, I do have a question. I was typing it on the chat, but I figured since the session is ending, I should go ahead and ask. So it was mentioned in the presentation that we should reply on the threads and not send out a new email.
Yes.
But what if I am sending an email to a prospect? He marks me in spam, and it goes to his spam folder. And when I'm sending follow-up emails, they are falling in his spam folder. So does it make sense to then reply to the thread or send out a new email? Because sometimes I see that in my inbox, people are not replying to their threads when they're cold emailing me. They are now writing a completely new email.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Sure. So there's a couple things here. One is if someone, there's the marking as spam, landing as spam, what to do about that, and also the multiple email threads versus one. So if someone's marking your email as spam or unsubscribe, probably shouldn't be emailing them anymore, because that means they don't want to be contacted. And if you email them, it's probably just going to upset them. Again, like they probably put your email in spam because they didn't want to see your emails anymore. And sometimes it happens, like, right? Like I send emails for clients all the time and they get marked as spam and they unsubscribe. Like, don't email those people anymore. It'll just hurt your, your sender reputation. If it's going into spam because your inbox isn't configured properly and you're seeing they're not opening the emails, that's different than if somebody unsubscribes or they mark you as spam, right? If someone marks you as spam, they'll auto unsubscribe. Definitely do not go back and try to email those people again. The multiple threads versus a single thread. Multiple threads is okay if you're going to be grouping like some similar thoughts and they know that it all loops back to your company. But it's difficult when you have 10 different emails and 10 different threads people don't remember what the last email you sent to them is, right? Like these marketing managers, they probably get 100 cold emails a day. And if you're sending 10 different threads, they might think it's from 10 different vendors or consultants or whomever. And so putting context around your responses and your replies in a single spot enables your prospects to say, oh, like, here's another email. I recognize this, the subject line, the sender, like, here's what they sent me before. Maybe I was too busy to respond to it before, but now once you send your third or fourth response and like something hits with them, they can go and scroll through the thread and see exactly what other emails you've sent, who you are, get some better context, and it'll more easily help them decide if they want to reply or not than if they need to go and search in their Gmail and they like see all these different threads with different stuff. So, but again, it comes down to preference, right? There's two different ways of doing it, but I just find that giving people context all in one spot is generally more preferable way to go about things.
Yeah, this was helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Yeah, and feel free to add me on LinkedIn afterwards. It's just Martin Kimmel. If you type in Owl Vision Labs, Marty, there's only one guy on LinkedIn like that, so it should come up right away. So if there's anything else that anyone has questions on, or anything along those lines, just let me know. And there's tons of good resources in here. So chances are, if like you want to do a deep dive or more research in anything, it's going to be here. I'm one of these resources. So
again, thank you so much for taking the session, Martin.
yeah, absolutely. And you have did I send you the presentation link to share with everyone? I think.
I think I have it. If not, I'll collect.
Okay. Well, here I'll just send it to everyone right
Done.
now.
Yeah.
So before everyone jumps out, if you're curious and just want to get your hands on this immediately, here it is. I'm putting in the chat. Yeah, thank you all for asking really great questions. Definitely a lot to take in. I know that this wasn't a let's jump into cold email slowly. This was, here's everything Marty knows about cold emailing in 45 minutes. So feel free to go back and watch the video again and take some notes and all that fun stuff. Cool. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. Let everyone in the group know what they missed out on, so that, yeah, let's make sure more people join in the sessions. Again, thank you so much for spending your time with us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And thanks for having me, Sean. I really, really appreciate it. This was awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone. All right. Bye-bye now.